Green homes, of course, is the topic of what we do here at Everyday Green Home Podcast. But there's so many experts out there in green homes, and it's kind of hard to weed through them all and know where do you go for help and who has what kind of resources. And today I want to introduce you to one of them that has been extremely helpful for me, and this is Green Home Institute. And just one of the reasons why I find you guys so incredibly helpful is the huge amount of resources, products, and education that you are continually updating and continually bringing to the forefront for us to look at and to weigh and to consider if it's going to work in our fit. So today we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into Green Home Institute. So hang on.
Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat, and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, work, and play. Join your host, Marla Esser-Close, the Green Home Coach, to learn how everyday green homes work for you, your family, and your community.
Hi, y'all. It's Marla, the Green Home Coach. And today I have Brett Little from Green Home Institute with me. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear what Brett has to say, because there's so much wrapped up in Green Home Institute, really great resources, education, product knowledge that really comes. In full disclosure, I am a member of Green Home Institute, so I am a paid supporter. But Brett and I we've known each other for a few years now. We think we got introduced by Carrie Klaus with Realty Sage, who I've met a lot of people through Carrie. So that's a good thing. But introduce yourself, Brett. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Hey, yeah, good to be here, Marla. Thanks for having me on. So yeah, again, I'm the education manager at the Green Home Institute. I've been here I've been here at this organization for like 13 years. I actually started out as a volunteer, believe it or not. I walked in the door and told them, tell me what to do, and I'll basically do it for free so I can learn something. I was thankfully in a position I could do that. I know not everybody's in those positions, but it certainly paid off, to do that. So we encourage others to go out and volunteer in their community, and you never know. But yeah, I live in West Michigan, outside of Grand Rapids, which is the other side of Detroit. Those who aren't familiar with Michigan, there is other places besides Detroit. So the other side, near Lake Michigan, with my wife and 2 kids, and working on my own home to be a sustainable home, and using it to help tell stories as well about what people can do to their existing homes along with the work I do here. So
I think a lot of us do that. I spent a lot of last year in a health and wellness remodel and sustainable remodel for our kitchen. And man, we've been telling the story everywhere, but it's kind of funny just to see how what we consider to be such simple steps or simple swaps aren't necessarily that evident to so many other people, which again is why this education and these resources are so critical. Mm-hmm. People need to know where to go to get trusted information, right?
Right.
So 13 years. Well, you've been there a day or two, huh?
Went by fast. Yeah, it's been a while.
I did not know you started as a volunteer. That's very cool. It's always fun to hear how people got started doing what they're doing and how they intersect with everything else in the world.
Right.
So give us a little bit more about what Green Home Institute is, what the organization's mission is, and what you are setting out to do.
Yeah, our mission is to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. And we primarily do this through really 2 different avenues. And then, there's some certain components to those different avenues that are done differently depending on where they're done, if you will. So one thing about us is that we have an international footprint as far as our work goes. And then, we have obviously things we do specifically in the United States, things we do more in the Midwest, things we do more in Michigan, things we do more in West Michigan, and certain cities within West Michigan. So we have, I always like to tell people, people are like, what do you do? And it's like, well, part of it is, where do we do what we do? Because it's a different answer in some regards. But two of our primary focuses is certification and education. And those are reciprocal. They work in tandem. So the whole idea is that you make someone aware of how to make a new or existing home, single family or multifamily, mixed use or high rise, more sustainable, and through education, through training, through accreditation, and then ultimately through continuing education to maintain their accreditation. And then that they would go out and hopefully not just be educated and accredited, but actually make real world change. And real world change to us is the actual certification. And so we help oversee and administer green building certifications. And then from there, people learn, they grow, they do case studies. We get the case studies out, we do education. So it's this kind of reciprocal idea, right? And so that's the biggest ultimate thing of our goal. And then we in West Michigan have grant funding to effectively remove the cost barriers to do these things, to affordable housing, supportive housing projects, to go out into the community and say, look, we got your back. You don't have to worry about the cost of education and certification. That's taken care of by our funders, so we can deliver it to you without an issue. And we get really locally engaged on moving the needle about these things forward, in our community. So
the local is so key. I mean, the roots are important.
Right.
That's why they call it grassroots.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And what are some of the projects y'all have done locally, if you can talk about any of them?
We can talk about them. I mean, mostly, again, we're still just providing our traditional educational and certification services, but we do get more deeply engaged with local members on their projects than we might otherwise. So by example of that is one large entity called ICCF Community Homes came in and recognized the affordable housing crisis way before it even started becoming the news, right? Back in 2017.
Yeah.
And they identified, okay, we're going to buy up all of these properties and we are going to sell them or rent them at affordable rates to the community to help, really take a small dent out of the problem. They're not solving the problem. They can't. It's not their responsibility. So when they did that, they made a commitment to Green Star certify a certain portion of their portfolio. And maybe they didn't realize what they were committing to at the time and got to learn but they started this in 2017. Here we are in 2023, and we're still working with them to figure out how to evaluate the homes properly, how to get the green certification standard to apply to the homes, how to educate the contractors on how and why to do it, how to find the products to do it, how to find additional funding to do it. And then they help us learn, because Green Star is our own internal program. So they help us learn how to formulate and reformulate our program so it makes sense for people doing this. So we learn from them as much as they learn from us. And so that has been an awesome journey of just seeing, of many failures, right? They just didn't certify. And
how we learn.
Right. It's just because all these other challenges, and then COVID hit in the middle of it and made it even harder. And now we've got inflation. And so it's just been fun to really be on the ground hearing about, yes, we want everyone to meet these lofty goals, but here are the reasons that it's hard to do, and how do we start knocking those down? So that's been fun. So
real world, being out there in the trenches. Yeah, I used to work a lot more on the low income tax credit work, and it's a whole different world when you're working in that kind of housing. But
yeah, it definitely is. There's just so many other challenges that they have to, and the fact that, their goal is to get people into homes, right? And that is where we always just have to remember is the goal is like, it's from a sustainability standpoint, it's better that people are in housing than in the street. So it's like step one. So,
right. Get them housed.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, housing is such a basic need. I mean, you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's right there on the very first step. And it's become such big business and so complicated and so many choices to make that I think sometimes we just forget the basics. So it's nice to see people doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you to them.
Yeah. And it's glad, and we're great to be a part of it. And again, just continuing to challenge the notion that you can just put people in anything. It can be sustainable and healthy. And you just have to take some time to think about it and a little bit of effort, right? And then you realize once you get over the hump, it becomes easier and easier to do. There's always, and that's part of that is just realizing where is that barrier, right? And once you overcome it, oh, wow, putting in a bath fan that ventilates at this standard, that really wasn't that hard to do.
Right.
Once I convinced all the heating and cooling contractors that we work with that should be done there, then they're like, okay. But on your way up to it, it's like, oh my gosh, we need to use a fan that vents at this high level. Like, why don't we just put anything in,
Yeah. And ventilation is, that's just such a key to healthier homes and so misunderstood.
Right.
We have a long, long way to go there. I actually sat in on a session yesterday about some of the federal funding coming in that was talking about grid resiliency and some of the other projects. And one of the things they were really talking about is educating the HVAC workforce. And I'm like, oh, you can't get here fast enough. Trust me.
Yeah.
There's just so much undereducation in the heating and cooling industry. And for you guys listening that don't exactly key into what we're talking about, so think about this. It's called HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And most of us never give a second thought to that hidden V, that ventilation. Yet ventilation is what helps us. That's the biggest step forward that helps our homes to stay healthier for us, is getting fresh air in, exhausting the stale air that has pollutants in it and moisture. And the tighter we build our homes, which we should, because that's healthier for us as well as saving us utilities and fuel. But the tighter they are, the more we need to make sure we have ventilation. So bath fans are one key part of ventilation. And that's a big, hairy topic that we can launch into. And actually, there's some really great webinars on you guys' website about ventilation that I can highly, highly, highly recommend. I don't do 3 highlies very often, Brett. The education quality is amazing. I've learned so much, and I haven't even listened to a fraction of the webinars that have been offered. At first glance, sustainability can be intimidating. But what if it didn't have to be? As our world begins to emphasize the importance of sustainable alternatives, we are presented with an abundance of options and techniques. But you don't have to tackle them all at once. I'm here to tell you that just taking the first or next step is enough. You've decided the path to health and sustainability is the right one. Now I'm here to teach you what your next steps are. Just as we take care of ourselves, it's important to take care of where we live, which is why I'm proud to be your coach that helps you create a healthier, happier home. Download your Healthier Home Checklist today at greenhomecoach.com/healthier-home-checklist. And you have a YouTube channel as well. Do I recall that right?
Yes. So, we do every Wednesday our CE webinar series, and the majority of all of that gets recorded and then posted up on our YouTube. We've also done, in the past, before the pandemic, we did quite a bit of green home tours.
Fun.
And posted a lot of those, and we're hoping to get more into getting back out there and doing more of those as well.
So if you're looking for some great education, folks, we'll put the link and the resources to both the learning section on the website as well as the YouTube link. So go check them out. You got a question, this is a great place to go and spend an hour. I think they're all an hour learning more about how and why that's important. So there's so many factors to our homes, Brett. They really have become pretty complicated. And it seems like the more building materials and finishes and everything else we introduce, the more challenging it becomes to make decisions. So I know in some of your education, you kind of start out with the basics, giving people the pillars of green homes and then helping to build off of that, which is kind of similar to how I've been teaching for a long time based on the 6 chapters in the National Green Building Standard, because they're all fairly similar. Which they should be, right? Because any green building certification should get us to the same endpoint, we hope. But talk a little bit more about the pillars and how you guys have based your education and your accreditation program, and who would want to go through that program.
Yeah. So, obviously the 5 pillars are kind of just every green program has its sort of items, right? 1 through 7, 1 through 8. We're just trying to simplify it down and expand some of the concepts, and also just make sure that when people are having conversations on how we build and improve our homes, that it's done, holistically, so that it can be very easy to get niched into one area, especially net zero. I mean, that is a very tempting area to find yourself niched in. And you've got passive house, which is different than net zero. But again, you find yourself niched into energy efficiency, in part because you can save a lot of money and there are direct carbon savings. So there's certainly, most of the green programs put more of their emphasis on energy for a good reason, but it can then, kind of take all the oxygen, and you can quickly forget about the other 4 pillars of green: health, water, materials, in place. So we decided to kind of go out there and put together an educational course that looked at all 5 of these components and use the things we know from all the green programs that exist, so that people can go through this and just get a good foundational sense of how these are interconnected, how they sometimes conflict. I mean, sometimes you also have to make a choice. If you're getting a product, is the product healthier? Does it use less embodied carbon, or is it less durable? Right? Those are sometimes trade-offs that you have to make. What's more important to you, right? To your client. And also then there's, of course, cost and availability, which, that always looms large over everything, right? But that's always going to be the case. So trying to maximize those pillars, understanding the trade-offs you have to make, and then how that incorporates into whichever green program you plan to use moving forward. Our goal is just to kind of to give people that foundational knowledge, and then ensure that they're, maintaining continuing ed, that, hey, if they're saying they're a certified green home professional, that they're continuing to get educated, continuing to build or renovate, or in the case of like realtors, sell green homes. Whereas, some credentials out there don't necessarily require that you maintain a certain aspect of green, right? It's just that you've done something with sustainability. It's not saying that, oh, every year you've gotten more education on energy and health. So that's one thing we require. And then the next, some of these credentials, you get them and then you're on your way, and you don't actually have to continue to prove that you know how to implement them. So that's a concern to us. So we made sure that there was a component of being involved in a green certification project to maintain the credential. It's because people are looking to our certified green home professionals for advice. And so we just want to make sure that they're up on, what they're doing. So. Gotcha.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have education that crosses over now, so I can do it for multiple things. But that's okay. We all need to stay up to date. I know when we were out at the Builders Show in late January, early February, so many new products out there that are touting they're healthier, they're more sustainable, they're this, they're that. And knowing what really matters and what is just hype, it's challenging for people that are even educated in the industry. And I know personally, I always look a lot for certified third-party certifications as one litmus test of whether or not they've passed the bar. And, of course, being in the green home space and working in support and verification, you have processes through that. But for the average person on the street, it's got to be absolutely overwhelming. There's so many different products. There's so many things we don't know about. And having education like yours available is so hugely helpful to go through and really kind of get through some of the hype. So thank you for providing that, because I rely on it more and more these days.
Yeah, and thankfully it's just fun for us, right? It's a fun thing to do that I personally like to do, that our organization likes to do. And so when you're, like they say, are you ever working when you're having fun, right? So we're just enjoying our time doing it, and grateful that we, have that. So
that is a good thing. So what else about Green Home Institute makes you all supercalifragilistic?
What else? I mean, we're lately getting more into policy and advocacy. Part of it is, in the past, anyone who studies nonprofits had been given the impression that nonprofits are not to get politically engaged, which is a false statement that still permeates the nonprofit sector. not only is it false, but it's wrong. It's plain wrong. The nonprofit sector should be politically engaged, not lobbying, not saying vote for this person, but they should be out in front saying, this is the thing we care about. And here are policy failures or lack of policies, whoever be implementing them at whatever level we should be doing. So we, didn't really engage in that at all and stayed more on market rate, market strategies, which is good and where we put most of our focus. But there are times when we have to speak up and say, the code is changing and what you're proposing doesn't make sense in reality. And so we need to speak out, or legislatures are proposing tax credit policies or other things. And again, they don't make sense, right? And so we need to engage our green building network to say, hey, what you're saying, we could make it better. Let's, make our voices heard. Because otherwise what you have that happens in our line of work is, on one side, you've got a hardcore environmentalists saying something, which is sometimes just, I appreciate everything they do, but sometimes it's just not practical. And then on the other side, you have the industry who just says, we can't do these things ever. Never can we do them. We can't change. It's impossible. It'll cost us too much money. And it's just those two voices butting heads and, talking past each other. And so we kind of like to think we come in a practical sense. There are things we can do. There are things we can't do. And here's the bridge to doing them between the two. And so we, I said, and not just us, but there's certainly other entities larger than us, more influential than us, but getting engaged where we can and showing up and talking to our policymakers. And I'm really excited about that work that we're doing and continuing to do that, especially as it's very clear that the Inflation Reduction Act funds that are coming out on a state-by-state basis, the states really need a lot of help implementing those things. So
that was evident in this conversation yesterday, this presentation.
Yeah.
They are looking for help because the states are, they're getting all this money and they've got to figure out where it goes and who the stakeholders are and what's going to be best use of the funds. And that's going to differ by state.
Right.
So, there's a lot to this. I know everybody I had to laugh. One of the comments one of the speakers said yesterday is, I keep getting calls from people saying, I know you have this money. It's sitting out there, which it is not, folks. The money has not, we're recording this in March of 2023, right. And the IRA funds have not yet become available.
Right. Yeah.
We're still waiting on rules for a lot of this. So it will be later in the year before anybody starts to see any of this federal funding coming into the states. But I had to laugh because she said, I've got people like almost, overly excited that they know I have the money and I don't.
Right. Yeah. We did a IRA webinar for just on the homes, the 25 homes see tax credit as of yesterday. First of March,
because I couldn't make it.
No, I'm not trying to call you out or anything, but yeah. It's
a good one to listen to, I'm sure.
But when we did it, it's just focused on the one that does exist. It's not very much money in comparison to the rebates.
Yep.
And so I hesitated to bring up the rebate only because it's like, I don't want people to like tune me out, but I'm like, I have to at least say that it's coming, but it's a balance because you're like, we want people to take action now and not wait, right? We got to get our carbon emissions down. We got to improve our homes. So don't wait for this big check to come that you don't know if you'll get it. There's this other pool of money here. You should move forward, right? Your water heater's failing. Your furnace is breaking down. Like, don't wait for all this because you're going to regret it, when your AC's busted this summer. Use the other one. And it's there and it's still pretty good. And so we're just, but everyone was on asking, when do I get the big $8,000 heat pump check? $2,000 is nice, but when do I get the $8,000? And it's just like, go talk to your state energy office, and they're going to defer you back to DOE and IRS who are still writing rules. So, but they need to hear, they have public comments coming open. So, we try to guide people on how and where to comment and all that. So
look for that. And one way for people to get information is to sign up for your newsletter, right?
Yeah. So our newsletter is mostly focused right now on our webinars that we do. But from the IRA standpoint, we are pretty much trying to be on top of that for sure. I mean, the rules for that was written in July, but I wanted to wait until 2023 when it's real, right? You can really do it now. And so I'd say we're, as far as housing goes, we try to stay on top of those kinds of things. But yeah, our newsletter is mostly pushing out all of the educational events we're doing. So, but maybe we'll add a little IRA update thing to the bottom of it or something. So
it's a big enough topic. It may be well worth it.
Yeah.
I think an awful lot of questions surrounding it. And then the last resource I wanted to make sure that we had a moment to talk about was your Find a Pro resource, which I've actually been using lately since I have a new client that's actually in Michigan, or will be in Michigan, which is weird considering I'm in Oklahoma. Hey, anybody can find anybody online, and most of us can work online. So there you go. But tell us a little bit more about what all's about using your Find a Pro.
Yeah. So right now, I will admit that we're redoing our entire website. And unfortunately, Find a Pro has fallen behind. And once we update our website, there will be a complete update and much more professionals we've been working with added. So it's a good place to still look, but it will be updated significantly with more people we've been working with. Awesome. And, for now, I always just ask if someone's looking for some assistance, you can email me and I'll say, oh, yeah, I know this person who's not quite on the list yet in this area. Potentially, I will. And I'll also say that obviously our biggest number of pros are concentrated by volume in West Michigan, and then all of Michigan, and then the Midwest, though we are building out folks from all around the country as we work on projects everywhere. So
very cool. Well, it's been very helpful for me personally, so I appreciate it very much.
Good.
Trying to help a client find some resources and have some people to talk to. So it's been very helpful. So as we start wrapping up here, what are a couple of key things you want to leave in our minds about Green Home Institute?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to let everyone know that, and especially from my perspective as the education manager, that, I just get real excited when I start to see everybody coming in live to our Wednesday sessions and engaging in the conversation, sharing your own opinion, even if I don't agree with your opinion. Like, there's a lot of that, and that's great. Let's keep having a dialogue. I've noticed that our sessions have become less of a sort of, we're talking at you, to we're having this sort of side conversation happening, and people are sharing LinkedIn links and they're making connections and they're sharing ideas. So let's keep having that. Join us. Let's have the conversation. I know sometimes getting out to conferences and all those things that, it's just a lot of time and money and carbon emissions. And then you've got COVID still floating around. So is it like you want to go there? I don't know. So it's like, hey, this is a safe place where you can be wherever you are and tune in and have a conversation. And we're trying to build it out so it can be more interactive. So I hope, you'll all join us in on that and find the same experience there and, add to the dialogue. So I'm
excited about getting in on more on more sessions. There's just not enough hours in the day.
Right. Yeah.
Everything I want to do.
Right. Yeah. And it's obviously at a very specific time. So, it could be limited, but yeah, that would be, that. And then I would say also our Green Star program, we keep open sourced. It's like other green programs where you got to pay for the manual or find it or anything. It's all there. Just steal it. Please take it, use it, and give us feedback on what we might be missing as far as how we're helping guide people. Especially, we've got millions and millions of existing homes across our country that are just, costing people so much money to operate. Yeah. They're putting out tons of carbon. They're unhealthy, unsafe, and we need to fix them all up. And so we've really put that tool together as a way to guide people on how to do that. So we're encouraging people to just take it, use it, make an informed decision, report back to us how we can improve it. And, again, we love to hear from people on that as well and what they're doing out there. So
I want to make sure our listeners get this, because this is something I hope I've talked about a lot on the podcast, but green home certification programs are for all homes. Almost all of them work in multiple environments for existing homes as well as new construction homes. Some of them are a little easier to work with on existing homes than others. So if you need some guidance on that, definitely give Brett or me a call and we can help point you in a direction that may fit your circumstances best, because there's definitely, like everything else in the world, there's a fit. So, but the cool thing is that there's choices, and there's this really increasing emphasis on existing homes, because a lot of us are never going to live in a new home. We're going to be in existing homes, and we still need those homes to be wonderful, healthy, safer, more comfortable for us living in them. And that's what this really all boils down to, Brett, isn't it? It's all about people. And everybody thinks that it's all about the environment or the built environment, and that's just a means to an end. But in the end, it's all about people. So There you go, my profound statement for the day. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I'm very excited that we have reconnected and that we're getting an opportunity to work together again. And I look forward to what else we can do in 2023. And again, y'all check out the show notes with all the links, tons and tons of resources that Green Home Institute offers. And if you can't find it, call Brett, because he'll find it. He'll help you find it.
Yeah, give me a call.
Anywho. Well, I appreciate you so much. And any parting comments?
No, let's just get out there and make our spaces better and make things better for people, like as you said. So thank you.
There you go. Have a great green day, y'all.
That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Want more? Join the Love Your Everyday Green Home private Facebook group for more resources and behind-the-scenes insights. And remember that living a little better and greener is easier than you think.